Wednesday, word, Wednesday, word, Wednesday, word. And we are live. What's going on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube Live? It is Coach Rowe. Today is Wednesday. I'd like to welcome you to the first row. And if it is Wednesday, you should already know what that means. It's time for the Wednesday word. That's Wednesday word. Jumping straight into it. Tonight's topic is unapologetic compassion. As always, I like to share what I mean by my topics, unapologetic compassion. So what do I mean by that? What I mean by unapologetic compassion is that many of us over the course of our lives have been conditioned to believe that when we display characteristics of compassion, that we are displaying weakness. And because we are displaying weakness, we are typically apologetic for it. Oh, I'm sorry I'm crying. I'm sorry that I'm down. I'm sorry I'm depressed. I'm sorry that I'm not taking this well. And so we make excuses for why we shouldn't be compassionate rather than simply embracing our compassion. So tonight, I really want to start off today with a question of how many times have you found yourself apologizing for moments of compassion where you are either empathizing or sympathizing, or even maybe not empathizing or sympathizing, just being genuinely compassionate to another person, and then feeling like later you need to apologize, whether to that person for being compassionate or to others because of your act of compassion. So with that in mind, as always, I have 3 tools for you for the first row that I want to share with you when it comes to unapologetic compassion. So let's jump straight into it. Tool number 1 when it comes to unapologetic compassion is embrace your sensitivity. What's going on, Brother Bruce? Embrace your sensitivity. What do I mean by this? Going back to the apologizing for compassion, it is a sense of saying, oh, I'm not weak, or, oh, I'm not as sensitive as I see, because, we are told, why are you so sensitive? Why are you being so sensitive? The world is so sensitive these days. Part of that might be true. However, the other part of that is that we are designed to be sensitive. So this is how we connect with other people. Sometimes you can't experience because we can't experience every single experience. Sometimes we have to rely on our sensitivities to the experiences of others in order to really be able to connect and be compassionate about what they may be going through. And so the good news is that if you are sensitive, you're not broken. You're functioning as intended. The other good news is that, again, we were designed to feel. We were designed to be able to empathize, to sympathize, to be compassionate with others. And so because we're designed that way, the more we try to fight it, the more conflicted we are when we are being compassionate. It's almost like in 2000, I want to say 20 or 2021, the big thing was being your authentic self, showing up authentically as who you are. And a lot of people were like, yeah, I'm going to be authentic. I'm going to be who I am. Hey, what's going on, Glenn? I'm going to be who I am. And I'm going to unapologetically be me. And so in embracing that, you begin to show up differently. And that differently isn't necessarily a bad different. It's showing up as you intend to show up, showing up as you intend to be seen. And so when we go to embracing our sensitivity, that is just another layer of who we are. There's varying degrees of sensitivity. Some people are very sensitive, and that's not good or bad. Some people are not as sensitive, and that's not good or bad. But it's embracing that sensitivity that allows us, almost like our senses that we have in our body, it allows us to be who we are. And so think about, your sense of taste. And since we're talking about sensitivity, your sense of taste. Imagine you have most of us have a very diverse range of flavors that we can taste. Imagine you going to eat a meal, maybe at a gourmet restaurant. The food is amazing, it smells good, and all these different things. And then you put the food in your mouth, and though it's delicious, though it's nutritious, though it's amazing, you try to convince yourself that your tongue can't taste the food. This ain't as good as I thought it was going to be. This isn't as good as they said it was, because you don't want to seem like you're impressed by the food. Imagine your sense of touch, touching a hot stove that is parent is clearly hot, and keeping your hand on that stove because you don't want to seem like you can't handle the heat. This is exactly what it seems like. How ridiculous these scenarios sound is exactly how ridiculous it sounds for us to think that we can live a life disconnected from our sensitivity, disconnected from being able to feel the experiences of others, and not even just the experience of others, feel the experiences that we ourselves are having in our own lives. So, what do? We apologize when we get emotional. What do? We say, "Oh, I'm sorry that I'm being so sensitive right now. I'm just going through a lot," and we make excuses for our compassion. My challenge on tonight's Wednesday word is to stop making excuses for what you authentically feel. Be your authentic self at every layer that you bring to the table. And in being your authentic self, I almost said awesome self. I feel like that's good too. But being your authentic self at every layer that you are in an existence, being that allows you to be in less combat or in less conflict with who you truly are. And it allows you to naturally progress into who you are designed to become. So that's tool number one when it comes to unapologetic compassion. Again, embrace your sensitivity. Tool number two when it comes to authentic, I don't know why I'm saying authentic now. I think I put that in my head. Unapologetic compassion is you are doing it right. And oh my gosh, this is something that I struggle with in life overall is that there's this thing out there called imposter syndrome. It's really popular. And I think it's been out there for quite some time. It's been out there definitely since I was in elementary school, but we just probably didn't call it that. Um, what that is basically you could be doing something exactly the way that it was meant to be done. However, you doubt yourself and that voice in your head that says you're not doing it right. You're not really about that life. You're not really a compassionate person. You don't really care. That voice tries to convince you otherwise, that you are an imposter and in fact you're doing it wrong. This tool is important because the reality is you're doing it right, because compassion is unique to all of us. How we display it, how we feel it, how we emote it, it is unique to each and every one of us. Now, there may be similarities, like for instance, Bruce and I may have similar ways that we display compassion. Glenn and I may have different ways that we display compassion. However, that doesn't make any of our ways of displaying compassion more important or a higher priority than the other. It's simply unique to us. And some of us may be in a little bit of alignment, but others we may be very far from. It's like, well, wow, that's not the way I would have done it. That's not the way I would have said it. That's not the way I would have experienced it or helped. However, that's the way that they did it. And if that's what they are deeming within themselves as authentic, unapologetic compassion, then who's to say that they're doing it wrong? We are quick to doubt ourselves and listen to the critical doubts of others, not just ourselves, but the critical doubts of others when it comes to compassion, feeling as if, well, all I have is $10, so I can only give you five of it because I have $10. Well, I think I was having I can't remember when I was having this conversation. I was having a conversation with somebody about giving money, and I was telling them I personally don't give money anymore to the homeless. I will give food. I'll give my beanie. I'll give other things. I just personally don't give money. And a lot of people may take that as, well, then you don't care about the homeless. Well, there's people who do give money to the homeless, and that doesn't mean that they care about them. I'm a person who actually sees the homeless. When I see them, I'm not like, oh, don't make eye contact. Because if you make eye contact, they're going to ask you something. I've already made the decision in my mind that I'm not going to give a monetary resource. But that doesn't mean that I need to ignore this person, that I need to act like they don't exist. At one point in my life, I was working on a concept for a book called The Invisible Man's Club. And it was about how we live in a society, and it's not very far from the truth. We live in a society that can walk past a homeless person and they don't see them because they choose not to see them. I live in a world, or my compassion lives in a world to where I can walk past a homeless person and say, "Hey, how are you doing today?" "Oh, I'm good." And sometimes they look at me like, "Why are you talking to me?" Because they have grown so accustomed to being invisible and not being seen that they're just like, "Wait a minute, I don't know how to accept that," because most people don't want to engage because they feel like I'm going to ask them for money. But you'd be surprised. There's been things that I've learned. I remember one of the biggest lessons I learned was from overhearing a conversation between two homeless people. And I was walking out of a very bougie salon. Not that I was getting my hair done, as you can see, but I was walking out of a very bougie salon from having lunch with a friend. And on the steps next to the salon, there were two homeless people. There was a homeless woman and a homeless guy. And they're having this conversation. And the homeless woman says to the guy, like, hey, you know that I'm like really your friend because both of us don't have anything. Yet I'm still willing to be your friend. I still have a desire to be your friend. All we have to offer each other is really friendship. And I remember thinking, like, man, that's like super deep because I've always been like this super deep thinker. I just wasn't a super deep actor as far as my actions, but I've grown, thank God. um, but I remember thinking like that was super deep that somebody who is homeless and doesn't have the monetary resources that I have thinks deep enough to say that, hey, I am willing to be connected to you. I'm willing to be sensitive to your needs. I'm willing to have compassion for you because I understand that at the end of the day, this is all I have to offer. All I have to offer is a human connection to you. But that's more than enough because that's all you have to offer to me. And that was like to me, like, man, I started looking at my friendships differently. Like, okay, what are my friendships really about? You wouldn't think you learned that from the homeless. However, if you're listening, if you're compassionate, not all compassion is monetary help. Not all compassion is, okay, well, I gave you food. Sometimes it's just simply seeing people. So this tool is really important, is to just really reinforce that no matter how you display compassion, you're doing it right. Compassion should be authentic. It shouldn't be like, well, I give to Goodwill all my used clothes every year, so that makes me compassionate. It's not necessarily routine. It is something that is authentic, and it is almost even situational. And so when I say, hey, I'm not really willing to give money to the homeless, if there's something that's on my heart that says, hey, look, this person's in need, you have $20, go ahead and give them the $20. I'm not so hell bent on the fact that, hey, I don't give money to the homeless anymore. I'm not so hell bent on that I can't tap into that sensitivity that I have and say, yeah, that might be what I typically do, but this situation is resonating different with me. So I'm going to do it this way. And doing it that different way outside of the constraints of what I normally do doesn't make that wrong either. It's still doing it right because it's connected to an authentic source. And so, oh, and that was the other thing about doing it right is it's funny when we think about doing it right to other people's standards. If we're trying to do it right to other people's standards, what's going on, Key? That it really serves no one. It creates frustration in us. If I, Key, since you're here, if I'm trying to do something as far as compassionate in the eyes of Key, but I really don't want to do it, all it's going to do is bring frustration to me. And that frustration for the type of person I am, that frustration that I feel is going to resonate somewhere outside of me. And Key is going to feel that. And so he's going to be like, well, yeah, I mean, the act, emphasis on the act. I'm an actor. I act. Emphasis on that acting. The act was compassionate, but it doesn't feel like the intentions came from an authentic place. And humans are very good at picking up on that. We are very good from birth. You can see babies who are like, I don't want to go to that person. But that's your uncle, that's your aunt, that's your, I don't care. I don't want to go to that person. Don't put me with them. We're very good at picking up on energies like that. But then somewhere along the road, we start saying, well, we'll second guess it. It's our intuition, but we don't want to judge people ahead of time. And we start making excuses for disconnecting from that sensitivity. And then we start, instead of doing it right the way it would be authentically done, we start trying to people please or build an identity that we are not truly resonant, that we're not truly in resonance with. So that's tool number 2. A lot to unpack really quick. Casual, what's going on? I see you in here. Definitely appreciate you for joining us live. Jumping this for the chat. Looks like Key says, you'll know your true friends when either of you don't have anything, or you'll know your true friends when either of you don't have anything, or when both of you have everything. Absolutely. Facts. Authenticity is everything. And that again is true. You will know who your friends are when you have nothing, they're around. When you have something, they're around. They're around because they're your friend, not because of what you have or what you have to offer. And then tool number three, let's jump to tool number three. When it comes to unapologetic compassion is strength. And this goes back to what I said in the beginning, is that for many of us, we have been taught, conditioned, learned that when we display compassion, we are displaying weakness. We are not, I feel like this is especially for men. Like whenever we display emotion, compassion, connection, sensitivity, we typically think of it as a weakness. Oh, I don't want weak. I don't want to be a weak man. There's been times where I've had conversations with people and I'm like, okay, I want to be connected with my compassion, but at the same time, I don't want to be a crybaby. Well, some men are sensitive like that where they might cry over more things than I cry over. However, there's things that I feel like I cry over that it's like, well, maybe some of the men I know wouldn't cry about these things. I remember when I got married, my middle son was like, "Dad is crying." Like I've never seen Dad cry, and it's like, as for him, how shocking that was for him to just see me in an emotional moment in a genuine, authentic space. It's also an opportunity for me as to set an example and say, "Hey, look, you're human, and you don't have to stuff your emotions down because you're feeling something." And that's why I feel like compassion truly is a strength. It helps us become more understanding of ourselves, how we feel, what we're feeling, what we're going through, but it also helps us understand the world around us. Because if you're disconnected from what's going on, it'd be like if the house next door was on fire and I'm in here doing the Wednesday word and I smell smoke and I smell wood burning and I hear people screaming and I hear the fire department out there and I'm just like, that's none of my business. I'm disconnected from the world around me. I don't know what's going on. And unfortunately, especially because I live in a townhome, unfortunately, not being aware of what's going on around me or not being aware of my neighbor's house being on fire doesn't let me know that being down here in the basement recording a Wednesday word, my life is in jeopardy as well. And so I cannot stress enough how much compassion is a strength. Even when I have conversations with empaths, when I have conversations with empaths are like people who take on the emotions of others. And I've recently had a conversation with an empath, and I was like, "Hey, you're being an empath is like a superpower because you're in a space where you can sense the emotions of others." I can't even see my camera. You can sense the emotions of others, and you sense them so strongly that you're able to bring those emotions into yourself. Now, this is where it gets complex being an empath, is realizing that these emotions are not your emotions, but you have them in a space that you are readily available to understand them. That is where the superpower comes in. It's not in the fact of, oh, well, I feel that you're depressed and now I have this depression emotion in me and now I'm depressed. That's not the superpower. That's what creates the boundaries of, hey, there's certain energies that I really don't want to be around if all they're bringing to the table is negative energies that I'm going to absorb and then internalize. But if it's a completely different thing, if it's like, hey, my friend over here is depressed, I can see they're going through some depression, I'm interacting with them, that comes in and sits with me, but I'm able to identify that these are not my emotions. I might have some situations in my own life that I'm depressed about or uncomfortable with, sad with, disappointed with, whatever it may be. However, these emotions that are sitting with me are that I'm dealing with or interacting with are not mine. And the superpower of that is being able to communicate with that person from the space that they are actually in versus the space that you are simply just sympathizing that they're in. And so when I say compassion is a strength, really what I would say is compassion is a superpower. And what it does is that, again, it allows me to understand that the ripples that I am making in the world affect the world around me, and that those ripples that are coming from others, rather than being an obvious impact, sometimes affect the world within me. And so those are the tools that I have for you guys this evening. Really quick, I'm going to go over the tools very, very fast. Tool number one when it comes to unapologetic compassion is embrace your sensitivity. Again, you're not broken. You are functioning according to your design. Tool number two is you are doing it right. Stop attempting to meet the standards of other people and quit trying to convince yourself that who you are is not who you are. If you are who you are, be that person, 100% committed to it. And then tool number three is compassion is a strength. Tap into that superpower. Be willing to connect with others. Be willing to connect with yourself. Be willing to not feel like it has to be a one size fit all, going back to doing it right, but be willing to be authentic in your compassionate space, and lean on that strength, realizing that the emotions that you feel and the connection that you feel is natural. And again, once again, a shout out to my men. It's natural for us to be compassionate. I know we're told that we're stoic and we're hard and, we're the disciplinarians and all these different things. I know that we're told these things, but there is a ton of compassion in being a provider and a protector. So tap into that superpower. So that's what I have for you guys tonight. Really quick, bringing you in, Glenn, from the live chat. Powerful tools. Appreciate the wisdom that you shared. Hey, I appreciate it. I don't read them before I bring them up. Maybe I should start reading them before I bring them up, but I appreciate that, Brother Glenn. So as always with the Wednesday word, for me, I like to share a personal story, something that got me thinking about this particular topic. And actually, it was an event that occurred in 2022, probably about 4 or 5 months ago. I was in a business meeting at my job. It was like a departmental meeting. So there's like 125 people in this virtual meeting. And we're having this conversation about just experiences. And one of the leaders in our department got on the microphone and started talking about an experience that they had where a coworker or an employee who reported to them had committed suicide. And during the sharing of like this experience about the person committing suicide, I wish there was something I could have done. I wish that they felt like they could have come and talked to me. I wish they felt like they could have come and talked to anyone or spoken to anyone. This leader begins to like get teary-eyed, sniffly, and crying in a business meeting. Now, going back to embrace the sensitivity. Some people are like, you're not supposed to cry while you're at work. This is obviously something that emotionally impacted them. And I remember sitting in this meeting, and no sooner than they started crying, it was like, I'm sorry I'm getting so emotional about this. I'm sorry that I'm crying about this. And they started apologizing. And it's very fascinating to see somebody be compassionate and then try to walk that compassion back like it's like it was wrong. And so it got me thinking about, why are we in this space? Why do we do this with compassion, where we're compassion forward and then we like, oh shoot, the cat's out of the bag, wait, stuff it back in the bag? Why do we do that with our compassion? And so the next day I had an opportunity to talk to this particular leader, and I was like, hey, I was thinking about you apologizing for being emotional about somebody committing suicide. And I was like, I want you to know that it's okay to be emotional. Not that I'm the authority that, hey, you have permission to be compassionate, but I want you to know it's okay to be emotional. You were talking about something that was emotional. You were talking about something that you obviously felt deeply connected to. So to be emotional about it, there's no reason to apologize, because the reality is that we all understand the emotion that you are feeling, even though we're not emotionally connected to the situation. But what happens is that you're surprised you're being emotional. We're surprised you're being emotional because why? We would be too afraid to be emotional. Not that we don't feel the emotions. We would just be too afraid to be emotional. And so it really got me thinking about how we could be more intentional and unapologetic about our compassion and come from an authentic space and be able to sit in that authenticity comfortably, without judgment, not necessarily from others, because you can't control what others do, but without judgment of self, and without feeling like you are less than, you are weak, you are ill-equipped for life in general because you are a compassionate human. So that's what really got me thinking about it. That's what tonight's Wednesday word is about: unapologetic compassion. Ask yourself how you could be more compassionate, how you could be more sensitive to your your compassion with others and with yourself. Compassion is also an internal thing, but we didn't get too far into that. But that's all I have for you guys tonight. As always, there's some things that I do want to share with you. We have some upcoming shows. This is the last week where we will not have a Carolyn Michelle and Billy Rowe live on Friday. So this Friday, you can catch Carolyn Michelle on The Grind to Find at thegrindtofine.com or anywhere where you consume podcasts at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Catch that live show. And as always, don't let the grind define you is how my sister Carolyn would say it. So you can catch her show on Friday. You can catch the next Wednesday Word on next Wednesday. That will be a live Wednesday Word with myself at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Looking forward to sharing that topic with you. I have a lot of topics that I want to share this season with you that are different from me, but I feel like they're refreshers and refreshing. So you can catch me next Wednesday, and then Friday, the 20th, January 20th, at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you will be able to catch Carolyn Michelle and Billy Rowe live for season 3. We're going to drop a couple of episodes for season 3. Then we're going to step back for a little bit, and we'll come back with season 4. And then I have a special announcement on something that I'm going to be doing. I'm not sure what the cadence of it will be, but I know that I will do the first show live on Saturday, January 21st for the First Row Financial Matters. This first Financial Matters is going to be on budgeting. I do a lot of things with finance. I help a lot of friends with their finances. And so I'm going to bring some of the things, some of the tools, and some of the tips that I do with my own personal budget into the conversation of the First Row. That will be on Saturday, January 21st at 9 a.m. I'm a morning person, so if we're going to do something on Saturday, we're going to do it in the morning. 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you are interested in learning a little bit more about finances and how you can get that refreshed or on track in 2023, you might want to tune into that show live. But that's it. That's everything that I have for you guys today. As always, I'm so grateful for you guys joining me live. If you like this video, share it. If you share it, I'm going to expect you to like it. Happy to engage with you in the live chat. Thank you for those who are tuning in live, but also for those who are watching via the replay. Happy to engage with you in the comments for the first 7 days that the video is up. And then after that, we move on to the next show. So until the next time, thank you guys for tuning in. One love, peace, and God bless. Thanks for sitting on the first row.